Okay. Welcome to Fast Cars, Fast Girls. Your IndyCar experience. This is the race in Texas.
Uh-oh, I'm losing you.
Oh no.
Okay, now I'm back.
All right, there we go. Okay.
All right.
So, yep. All right. Well, in case that didn't come through, welcome to Fast Cars, Fast Girls, your IndyCar experience with Abby Meyer. I'm your host, and this week we have Mike Knapp with us. We're going to talk about Texas. And yeah, Mike, thanks for joining us. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
it's great to be here and happy to talk about Texas because I am here. So I
Excellent.
will be. They were nice enough to credential me, so down here watch the race and meeting up with a friend, hoping to turn him into an IndyCar fan. So lots going on down here.
Lots going on. And yeah, you said it's a friend of yours from high school that you reconnected with over Facebook about 10 years ago who happens to be
Yep.
down there. So,
Yep.
yeah, I say convert him to an IndyCar fan. I
I'm
support
going
it.
to do my best. That's for sure.
I support it. I support it. I'm always about bringing in
Of
new
course,
fans.
now he's a Texan because he lives in Lubbock, so
Oh, yep.
it might be a little hard to break past the whole football thing, since that's pretty obsessive here, as everybody would know. So, but I'll do my best.
Well, I mean, the good news is we don't really overlap with football season except for, a very brief period of time. So,
Yeah, but it's always football season here, so.
that is true. That is true. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about your accommodations. Um, Mike is staying at, of course, Fast Cars, Fast Girls' favorite hotel chain, the Motel 6,
hmm Great
which,
location, but it's set up a lot like dorm room chic. It's wood floor and a bed and a TV and a bathroom. Not much else than that. So kind of does remind me of my dorm room in college. But
it definitely has a dorm room feel. No, when you said that, I was like, it has a very dorm room feel. They've been renovating the Motel 6s, and that's one of the renovated ones. So it is nice,
Mhm.
though.
yeah, it's just down the street from the track, and compared to everything else, it was really pretty inexpensive, and so that's perfect for me. That's for sure.
Excellent. Now, here's what I want to know because 3 years ago, Molly and I were there, and you were there as well. And I don't know if you had this experience 3 years ago, but it was so newly renovated that we had that brand new TV, but we didn't have anything plugged into it. So,
Huh.
like, there wasn't an antenna or a cable box or anything. So we laughed because we had the TV there, but we couldn't actually watch anything unless we like hooked it up to our laptops. Um,
Uh-huh.
and so I just want to know, does your TV actually work this year? Is it hooked up?
Yes, it actually works, and I'm watching the Chattanooga, Illinois game on mute. So,
Excellent.
and I drove down here yesterday, so I missed the entire first day of the tournament. So I'm trying to get caught back up today.
Well, there were quite a few upsets.
hmm There's a good
Yeah.
upset here brewing too with um, Tennessee, Chattanooga. There we go. There's a lot of Tennessee colleges like Middle Tennessee and all those. So yeah, Tennessee, Chattanooga is giving Illinois all it can handle. So which is always a good thing. As an IU fan, there aren't too many um, teams that I'm happy to see, winning the tournament. And despite living most of my life in Illinois, I've never gotten into the Illini. So and now I'm married to an IU grad and a family of IU grads, so I would never get into the Illini anyway. So
Yeah,
I'm
no,
hoping.
now it's not allowed.
Yeah, exactly. So
You would
I'm
be a
definitely rooting
pariah.
for Chattanooga.
You would be the pariah of the family.
I would. Although my nephew did graduate from Purdue, and we still let him in the house. So
I
we
mean,
we've kind of relaxed the standards a little bit.
yeah, I got a couple cousins like that. I mean, and I did a semester at Purdue, so I feel like I can fully say that I used better because I did go to both.
Well, luckily my alma mater is Northern Illinois, so not a Big Ten school, so thankfully not any conflicts.
There you go. No conflicts whatsoever.
Nope.
No conflicts at all. Oh, all right. Well, let's get into Texas. So I'm just going to cover the quick facts about Texas, and then we'll get into talking about some of the more exciting stuff. So
Okay.
this is the XPEL 375. And in case you wonder where 375 came from, it is almost how long it is. It is 372 miles or 248 laps. It's also about 600 kilometers. So in the past, the race has been usually called something 600 or the something
Mm-hmm.
375. It just kind of depends on if we're doing, metric or imperial.
Yep.
I guess they just flip a coin every year. Uh, but it is always a great race, and it's a 1.5 mile oval, which technically counts as a super speedway. It's on the bottom range of a super speedway. And I would say, for the most part, usually has really great racing.
Yes.
We
As of like before 3 years ago.
Yes. So we'll dive more into that as well. It is
Yeah.
your regular oval where it's got 4 turns. It's not a tricky triangle like Pocono was. It does have some high banking. So it's 20 degrees in turns 1 and 2 and 24 degrees in turns 3 and 4. There are mixed reviews about how people feel about IndyCar on the Texas oval, because they do get up into the 220s. I mean, it is some fast qualifying speeds. Some people think
Mm-hmm.
that might be a little too fast for a track that size. However,
And
I find it exhilarating.
I do too, and I didn't like it back in the pack racing days.
Man,
I like it now because there's a possibility for good close racing, but it's not pack racing lap after lap after lap, which I was never ever a fan of. That just
it,
I love close racing, but that kind of stuff. I mean, whatever racing series it is, pack racing, whether it's in Cup or whether it's in IndyCar or whatever, it's just dangerous and overblown, and I'm glad
mhm.
IndyCar doesn't do that anymore.
I am very glad. It watching races like that, it was like your stomach was constantly in your throat the entire time,
Right.
but not in a
And
good way. Not in a like
yeah,
edge of my seat because the racing's so good. It's one of those of almost panic of like, oh my God, is somebody going to get really fucked up in this race?
yeah, and especially, I hate to say it, and not all the fans can. I mean, a lot of them have met drivers and everything, but and I'm sure you have too. I mean, having conversations with these people or having them on a podcast or writing a story, where you kind of get a little more invested in them, and I don't want to see anything bad happen to anybody. And when people go, oh, well, that's just that's what racing is. No, that's not what racing is. It's just crashes or whatever is just a byproduct of it. But you don't need all that stuff to say, well, racing's dangerous, because what they're going to do this weekend is in fact dangerous, going 220 miles an hour around a mile and a half track that they're getting around in 23, 24 seconds. That's dangerous, but we don't need an extra layer of danger to make it fun. I mean,
Yeah,
and we'll get to it if we can get multiple lanes in the turns and let some of these guys build some momentum and get some passes. It'll make for a much different race. But I'm glad that the standard is there, that everybody's thinking about the safety and everything of the drivers who can put on a good race, who can show kind of the daredevil, dangerous aspects of it without us having to worry about, one of them getting, carted off. I mean, it could happen, but, when you go back and you look at some of the awful wrecks that happened, with Kenny Brack and with um, Davey Hamilton and things like that. It's just that can still happen, but thankfully we've removed a lot of variables to that as well. So
absolutely.
because with pack racing you have to race that way.
Yes.
It's not like I don't want to be a part of this. Well, if you don't want to be a part of it, in the past you just wouldn't race that weekend, but you know, and drivers I talked to in the past said they didn't like racing that way either. But yeah, I mean, you can't say I'm going to back out and I'm going to get out of this mess. You can't, because number one, there's nowhere to go,
Yep.
and number two, then you're going to get freight train, and
Exactly. Well, and I
so
always, I know, well, and I'll say like my example for what I hate about pack racing is like the big one at Daytona every year.
yeah,
You know, it's
yeah,
like you just know, like literally, I typically like I'll watch bits and pieces of the Daytona 500. I don't watch it religiously, but I always know that the morning after I can literally search big crash Daytona and it will come up with the most recent big crash from Daytona every single year.
yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
mean, it happens when you have pack racing. Like one person gets squirrely and then it takes out half the field.
Yeah, and I've actually been to both the Daytona 500 and the Coke Zero 400 or whatever it's being called now. And it is kind of fun to watch, and I don't worry as much because the safety aspects of Cup cars, but I do think that it just kind of adds a level of stupidness, and that's what leads to, first of all, big ones, which wreck a lot of cars and cost a lot of money, which, yeah, the
Hmm.
big teams can absorb that. But, you're talking some of these little teams that are scrambling to find sponsorship or do whatever, and they wreck a car, and yeah, that's difficult. And,
It is. Well,
but I
yeah,
also,
like Juncos, it's like
Mhm.
they're not rolling up to a racetrack with, six extra tubs ready to go.
Right, right, and so and I also do think it takes away from the race itself. I mean, I'm an IndyCar fan, so a race is X number of miles or X number of laps, and it ends.
Yes.
I mean, there's a start and a finish, and um, and I've always argued that I don't think it happens enough that you have to, make any accommodations, to have green flag finishes. Sometimes you don't. It's just like going to, a Pacers game and one of the teams, wins by. I mean, I went to see the Bucks play the Warriors a few weeks ago and up in Milwaukee, and it's like you would think on paper that that was a marquee game, which it was supposed to be, but then Milwaukee kicked the crap out of them. They were up 38 at halftime,
Hmm.
and that's what it was. It's an athletic contest, and so this I'm just I'm a purist in that sense, where there's a beginning and an end, and it just gets so ridiculous with crashes, and then we go green, then it crashes again, and then we throw the red, and then we do three green white checkers, and it's like, does that actually produce a true winner, or does it produce the person who rolled his dice the right way? And
I would agree with you.
yeah,
I would agree with you.
yeah,
I'm glad
so
we
that,
don't do green white checkered. I also think it would definitely mess up too many of our IndyCar teams because so many times they are like, I mean, on just fumes as they cross the finish line almost. I always enjoy when the race winner cannot make it back around the track again
yeah,
after they cross the finish line.
yeah, exactly. That's the way it should be.
Right? I'm like, you budgeted perfectly. You
Yes,
budgeted your fuel perfectly. Well done.
yeah. Well, I mean, you look at possibly one of the most thrilling, um, in the last few years. Of course, you could pick almost any race of the last 10, 15 years as thrilling. But when Rossi was trying to make it on fuel, and I remember we were sitting in the Southwest Vista, and he came by, and it didn't sound like his car was running,
Right?
and it was just crazy. And it's like, okay, at that point you have 2 miles to go.
Right?
Are you gonna make it all the way around? And that's thrilling in itself too.
It was. I remember when we saw him coming, because we sat in the paddock, and so we're, on the front straightaway.
Right.
And so, we watch him round turn four, and I'm like, All right. I know that he's going well over 100 miles an hour, but can we talk about how slow he's going right now? Like, it's just compared to the rest of the race. I'm like, we're watching him and I'm like, that motherfucker ran out of gas.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
that car is just coasting.
But he was, that was the thing. He had that such a lead that he could get to that point and just coast it in. But yeah, if he'd have had another half lap to go, that would not have happened.
No, that definitely would not have happened. But yeah, I love it. I love that we get
Yep.
Infinity car. Oh,
Yep.
I do. I enjoy it a lot. So, well, just a quick info on qualifying, because ovals, other than the Indianapolis 500, because it has all of its own rules, because it's special, as it should be.
Absolutely. Yep.
But most ovals, the other ovals, anyway, you have 2 laps. And so you do lap 1, lap 2, and the average speed of your 2 laps is what your qualifying speed is. And that's what places you in the order as to where you'll start the race.
Yep.
So for those of you that might only be Indy 500 fans that are expecting a 4-lap run, it is only a 2-lap run. So I will say,
I think Indy is special, and it should be 4 laps. And I know they tried the 4 lap thing, a while back, and it's like, no, that's reserved for Indy. For every other oval race, 2 laps gets it done. So
I
I
would,
mean, because like I've always argued about Indy. Indy should be freaking hard. Qualifying for the 500 should be the hardest thing you ever do. Even
agree.
if even if there's only 33 cars and it's like, yeah, I just got to do 4 laps. You still got to do 4 laps at 220, 225 miles an hour. I mean, it's not a cakewalk, you
No,
know. But especially when you look at the guys in the Fast Nine, and you just look at what it does to them physically while they're in the car. I mean, we can see these guys and their chests are heaving, while they're
right.
doing their qualifying run. It's like the stress and everything is just so ramped up, and that's the way it should be. But it should just be for the Indianapolis 500 for sure.
I agree. I like the 2 lap. The only time that I feel that it's not quite enough is like when we do the like Iowa, how there's 2 races. You do
Mm-hmm.
2 laps, and lap 1 is your qualifying for the first race, and lap 2 is your qualifying for the second race. And so for
Yeah.
that, it feels like it's just not quite enough.
Right. Right.
But
I could see a thing where maybe do 3 and you take the 2 best ones or something like that. Just to add a little more intrigue to it. But yeah, yeah. I wish, and I know it's a doubleheader again, but I do wish they would kind of sort that out, because I don't think it is necessarily the most efficient way to set a grid. It's kind of the same way, like the junior series do, where they, one race is by qualifying, then race 2 is set by your best lap time in the race and all that kinds of stuff. But yeah, so I think there should be a different solution to qualifying for both races. I don't know what that solution is, because you can't do, well, we're gonna go through the line for race 1 and then we'll go through the line for race 2, because you'll probably get the same result anyway. But yeah, if there was something else they could do to make that a little more intriguing, a little more exciting, I'd be all for it.
yeah, like I would support 4 laps for a doubleheader. And like maybe laps 1 and 3 you average, and then laps 2 and 4 you average.
Right. Because the only way you're really gonna have a difference in the way the grid's set up is if somebody has a bobble or something happens. So you have to. I think you have to earn it, make them earn it for both races. But yeah, like you said before, I don't know how that gets done.
Yeah. Things for us to consider. Not that anybody's asking us, for solutions on this, but we can continue to muse.
Yes, for sure, for
I
sure.
say that's what IndyCar fans do best, right? Is find solutions for things.
Maybe they should all put us in a room for some of the things that are going on now. We'd probably get it all hashed out.
I think so. I think so. And everybody would be satisfied with the results.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We're known for that as motorsports fans, as being very easily satisfied.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, I did make a comment last week, I think, on Twitter where, people were bitching about just different things. And I was like, well, God forbid we give IndyCar fans exactly what they asked for.
Yeah. Yeah. I
We hate
mean,
that. We hate that.
we can't have nice things.
This is why we can't have nice things. Exactly. So I'll tell you what, one of the surprising facts about this race, well, not to me because I personally love this driver, but it was when he was with Dale Coyne or Chip Ganassi, maybe. I think it was Chip Ganassi. But the qualifying record for 1 lap and 2 lap are both held by Charlie Kimball.
Yeah.
Which,
yeah, that's really that is very interesting. And of course there's also the kart record because they measured the track differently. I mean, it's all sorts of weird things. But yeah. Charlie Kimball being the lap record holder is definitely a good trivia question that might even be tougher to do than Wordle.
Yeah.
Although I have not done Wordle, I don't want to get down that rabbit hole, but I'm assuming that's what happens.
It is a rabbit hole. I do Wordle.
Yeah.
Yep. I got sucked in and I was like, all right, I'll do this. But yeah, no, I think that is a fun little trivia. Charlie Kimball, fastest 1 lap and 2 laps. So
yeah,
both from 2017, which that was a year that had quite the spectacular crash.
Yeah.
It took out felt like half the field.
Yeah. Oh yeah, was that when it went or no? What?
That was the one where TK turned right instead of left, and then hit Hinge, and they literally took out 8 cars.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah,
it was 8 or 9.
Because 16 was when they started the race and it rained, and then
yes, and then they finished it in August or some shit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then 17 was the year Molly and I had dubbed the clusterfuck 600 because of the wrecks and accidents. It was the WeatherTech 600, but yeah, we called it the clusterfuck 600.
Sometimes with IndyCar that does fit.
Yep, it definitely fit for that race. Luckily, we haven't had that since then. Our biggest issue is this PJ1 that they put on the track for NASCAR, because things that are good for NASCAR, track-wise, are not good for IndyCar, and vice versa, because they're very different cars. We talked about this a little bit earlier about how IndyCar is adding some, or giving the option to teams to add extra downforce.
Mm-hmm. And go out and so I think what they did is after qualifying, there's a 30-minute session before the before final practice that I think they're going to give teams the chance to go out there, and it's going to be kind of interesting to see the setup of the cars because it's giving them more downforce than is legally allowed. So
and interestingly enough, they were allowed to use this same package of extra downforce last year at the 500. And of the 33 teams, 32 of them used it.
Mm-hmm.
But do you know who didn't?
Your
friend Alex Palou. He was the only car that didn't use the barge board and what's the other thing? But yeah, he was the only car that did not use the extra downforce allotted.
Well, as we were talking about, before we started recording, he's such a nice guy, and he's such a great guy to deal with, but he's such a different person when he gets that helmet on and puts that visor down, and fearlessness and a deep, deep well of fortitude, let's say, is part of his MO. So it wouldn't surprise me that he went on his own with that one.
Yeah, no, not surprised at all. Not surprised at all. I thought that was a fun fact. I read that earlier today, and I was like, good for Alex Palou. Look at him.
Yeah.
And he finished second. So look at that.
Exactly. And I was actually at the track today, and I was inside, near the media center in the garage, and it didn't, where they put the traction compound down, it doesn't look as dark as it has in the past.
Well, that's
Because I
good.
know they went out sometime earlier this week, and they drove a lot of laps pulling a metal grate behind a car or truck, probably a truck, but so it doesn't look as distinct. The entries to the corners it does, but just once you get up to the banking and stuff in the middle of the corner, it doesn't look as dark. And I know some of the listeners probably saw the video that Marshall Pruitt put out where he was actually on the track, and he said that just doing the foot test, that they were a little bit closer, that the lower lane and the lane next to it, they're a little bit closer than they were. But I give the teams that are going out and they're going to do that special practice, I give them all the credit in the world, because there's probably some data to be gleaned, which is a good thing for them. But man, I mean, when you look at over the last couple of years and what happens to the car when it gets, onto that surface, I wouldn't want to run the risk of crashing one of my cars, especially with that being at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and then you're racing at 11:45 the next morning. That's a very short turnaround. And as we said, it's one thing to have downforce, and it's another thing to have grip. So you can have all the downforce you want, but if you hit that compound and you lose your grip on the car, then you're on skates. And we saw that happen, to Rosenquist. We saw it happen a couple times in the last couple of races. And it just sucks, because what it does, having that there, just really ruins the race for IndyCar. And that's the difficult thing, because Texas has been such a good partner for so long, and now it just seems that unless they can figure that out, I mean, is Texas and IndyCar at an impasse about this? Because obviously Texas has to do what's best for NASCAR, because NASCAR pays the bills, and so that is understandable. But at the same time, if your racing series can't get it done there, and it's not like they're drawing big crowds or anything like that, and as much as we all love ovals, if they can't get it done, let's go back down the highway, down 35 South, and go back to COTA, if that's the case. Because I think there's a good market in Texas, and it seemed like the one race we held there in 19 was pretty well attended. And I think they could probably piggyback off the popularity of F1. And I mean, that race last year was massive. I mean, the crowds and everything. And, I don't know how many people came from how far of a radius away. But, I mean, if you can get, people in Texas and, us crazies that come down and travel all over the country watching these races, I mean, you can get it done at COTA. It sucks losing an oval, but that's also, I think, a very viable alternative as well. And you have to look at the fact that Eddie Gossage is gone, and he was such a advocate for IndyCar that if the new management can just make that decision that they don't want to have IndyCar here, then it's time to start looking at other options, unfortunately.
I tend to agree with you there, because like we've talked about, we have had some really great racing there, but if they continue to use this compound, because NASCAR is paying the bills, and I understand that from a business perspective,
right.
But we're not going to continue to have an on-track product that's crap either.
Yeah, because and that's been the complaint, both in terms of attendance and in terms of what we read on social media and stuff like that. It's like Texas used to be a big deal. Texas used to be almost like, if you wanted to set up, I guess, quote unquote, crown jewels or whatever in Indy. I mean,
Sure.
Texas, winning there is still a big deal. I mean, you look at I put up a blog post today, 15 days in May.blogspot.com. Anybody who wants to read it, but I put one up, and when you look at the people, I was researching some stuff, and when you look at the people who have won here, I mean, it's an incredible list of drivers and some of the best in IndyCar in the last 25 years. So I mean, there's such a history here, and how many other tracks does IndyCar have a 25-year relationship with?
Right.
And it would really, from that standpoint, and because I like this track, of course, from that standpoint, it would really be sad for it to go away. But I think IndyCar has to always consider doing what's best for IndyCar and figure something else out.
Yeah, I would be sad to see it go away because I do enjoy racing at Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I never want to see an oval go away, especially a bigger one, even though this is only 1.5 miles.
Right.
Because I'm not, and this will be my hot take for the episode, I don't love short ovals.
Really?
Yeah. You know what? I'll just go full hot take. I don't think IndyCar has any business on a track that's smaller than a mile.
Yeah.
And I will stand by that. I had a conversation with a friend of mine. We were at St. Petersburg, and it was funny because we both attended the same Iowa race a couple years ago, but we had never talked about this aspect of it, and that feeling like we talked about earlier of, your stomach's in your throat because you're just waiting for something terrible to happen.
Yeah.
That's how I felt the entire time at Iowa watching them race live. And
yeah.
I did not have that sense on the TV. On the TV, it didn't feel as terrifying. But in person, I just kept thinking, like, something bad is going to happen. I just felt like there was going to be a really bad crash and with a bad outcome. And it just, I don't know. It makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I don't like it. So that's my hot take, is that I don't think they belong on tracks smaller than a mile. I think that we go too fast and that we should feature that, and we should bring in more super speedways so we see the fastest of the fast.
Right. And I know safety aspects aside, Pocono would be a good racetrack to go back to. I'm on that. I'm on board with that.
I would love if we went back there, because what I really enjoyed about Pocono, and I understand, IndyCar has, insurance issues, and, Pocono is the last truly family-owned track, and so they don't have money to just throw at things like the tracks that are owned by NASCAR, etc. It's like, or the IMS now being owned by Penske. It's like, RP's got more money than God. So, like, literally probably has more money than the Catholic Church. So it's like any improvements that they need, not a problem. Whereas that's not the case for Pocono because they're a smaller business. And so I understand IndyCar's choice, but I just thought it was so cool when we went there because it was another 2.5 mile oval. It was another true super speedway. And we got to see those, super fast speeds like we saw at Indy.
Yeah. And IndyCar has a history there going back 50 years.
They do.
And so it from that standpoint too, I mean, to connect, at some point with the series and with the people who are fans of the series, finding a way to connect the past with the future is a big deal. Until IndyCar can, bring in, the younger fans, which, I have my ideas, and maybe we could talk on this on a different episode, but of course they won't listen to me. But if they could bring in younger fans, things might work a little bit differently. But the old guard loves Pocono, and I guess at my age I'm closing in on that old guard because I first went to the Speedway in 1979, so. But yeah, so whatever we can do to make that connection that makes some of the fans who feel like maybe they're getting pushed out a little bit, if we could, connect with them and make them happy, then I think that just overall lifts the entire series up. It's not like, um, does IndyCar need fans like us who get into all 17 races? Absolutely, but there's nothing wrong with having fans that just like 4 or 5 races, or
Yeah.
that watch Indy and Pocono and Texas, or just
Gateway and yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there are a lot of people that are very much oval track fans, and I think that's a big challenge for all racing, well, except for F1, because that's where I want to steal a lot of my ideas from. But getting those fans in and making as the collective group as happy as possible is the big thing. And like you were saying about IMS, Roger can, write his own check. He has the ability to go out and raise, the money if he needs to. And I know they've only dipped into this a couple of times, but, the state of Indiana, what the Speedway means and the, economic impact and everything like that. I don't think the state has a problem, throwing some money in too. So I mean, IMS, for as old as it is so
Technologically
modern and,
advanced
and
as far
everything
as
like that.
safety, yeah.
Yeah, and because they're able to make those investments, and like you said with Pocono, it's just that family, and when you go there, I don't know what you want to call it, but it's so I want to use the word quaint. I don't know, but
You know what?
that
I'll use the word. It's not quaint. It's how I felt when I went to Texas a couple of years ago. It was my first time to Texas as a state, and
yeah,
I felt very similarly, which was I was like, this is charming.
yeah,
Like
and
it's
if
not
you've ever
quaint because quaint like almost implies kind of like small, and it doesn't have it very much has a big feel, but it also has that like family business feel, and it's just charming, and it felt very comfortable to be there.
Yeah, and for people that haven't been to the track, I mean, it is out in the middle of nowhere, and the closest towns only have a couple thousand people and everything. So when you pull up, it just kind of rises out of the ground
It
at you,
does.
But yeah, just a family-owned thing. They've got that little white building that they probably had there since they built the track, and that's where you go to get your credentials, or I'm sure that's where the offices are, and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, that's the kind of track that we really need to keep supporting, and because as great as some tracks are in this country, like when you look at NASCAR, I mean, basically two entities own all of the tracks on the circuit.
Yep.
And so it's good to have some sort of family owned thing like what Pocono has, because it's what, in the end, what racing is all about, is just
Hmm.
families and
Well, and
people.
that's how everybody starts in racing. Sorry to cut you off, but it's like
No,
that's how you start. Is it's a family endeavor. If one of your
I,
kids is a racer, the whole family's going to racetracks every weekend.
yeah,
And I feel like NHRA you definitely have that feel at their racetracks because it's so obvious that it's, family endeavors from the, littlest of kids all the way up to the professionals. Uh,
hmm
but all of racing, it starts out as a family endeavor. And so it's cool when you go to a track like that because it's, like you're almost paying homage to how all racers started, which was who supported them first, their family.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the first track I ever went to when I was little was Rockford Speedway in Rockford, Illinois, and I mean I still go there because it's less than an hour from my house. But that was in the mid '70s when I went there, and the track's been around for 70 plus years, and that's how you get, and you just at Rockford, near along the main straightaway, they have it's almost like Grauman's Chinese Theater and the Walk of Fame in LA, and that they have some cement with, handprints and footprints and things. And you look at, stock car people like, Mark Martin raced there. Chad Canales got his start as a mechanic there. I mean, it just, it just, the history of racing is so important, and you just can't give up on that, and I mean, that's kind of the sad thing about like Milwaukee, is that it predates IMS even. And if you read some of the crazy stories about people like Ralph De Palma and stuff like that racing there, and it's just a shame that it just sits there. But, sometimes money and politics do bad things, and in Milwaukee's case, they are. I wish there was some sort of middle ground to that, but
Same.
to keep it in the family and to keep it like that is just, it's what racing's really about.
It is. It really is. It's very cool.
Yeah, I mean, that was really the thing about Indy for so long, and I think the Holman George family took it as far as they could go. But yeah, just for even like you go back in the old days in the one race there a year, and how, even still, Mr. Holman insisted the grounds were kept up, and he insisted all sorts of things, even though nobody was coming to the track, and to have that, family aspect to it. And now, like I said, it reached the time where, it needed a bigger person owning it, and somebody with more capital and somebody with more influence. And obviously that's what they have with Mr. Penske. But yeah, as excited as I was to when he took over, I also kind of was a little bit sad too to see that end of an era like that.
It was. It was. But what I think is cool is that, how he views it is he's just a steward of the Speedway.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
It's like the Speedway is always going to be the Speedway, and yeah.
Well, I think he takes the same attitude that AJ Foyt does. I didn't make Indy made me. And and as long as we have people who are who have that attitude towards the facility, it's always going to be in good hands.
I agree. All right, back to Texas.
Texas.
We've gone off on tangents.
That's just a day in my life.
I know, right? That's like every second of every thought that I ever have. It spurs 19 different rabbit holes.
Yeah, like today I was going. I had to go into the ticket office to because I just made it easy and bought a ticket for my friend, and I had a Cubs pullover on, and this guy, whoever the greeter, whatever you want to call the guy that's there, all of a sudden, I'm thinking racing. I'm thinking, okay, what are my topics for the weekend, and different things like that, and just being excited to be back at the track. And then all of a sudden we got into a discussion about the 2016 World Series, and I was with him for like 20 minutes. So yeah, that's just how things roll with me.
I mean, no judgment here. No judgment here. So yeah, no, I get distracted by myself and shiny objects all the time. So it happens.
Yep.
All right, so we've kind of discussed. Well, we've hit the main points of Texas. So let's go into the hot take mode. So, Who do you think is going to do well? Who do you think is going to not do well? Because we've got rookies, we've got a couple oval rookies. We've got J.R. Hildebrand returning for AJ Foyt, but
I'm excited about that.
I am so excited about that. I love J.R.
Yeah.
I absolutely love him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would love for him. I mean, you can never fix what happened to him 10 years ago, 11 years ago. You can never fix what happened to him, but I'd like to see him win an IndyCar race. Just the kind of, I don't know if he'd ever would be with the type of team to win the Indy 500, but dang it, I'd like to see him win an IndyCar race just to say he did.
I mean, I feel like he's owed an Indy 500.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, that obviously was supposed to happen because it was supposed to be, Weldon's year for sure.
Right.
But yeah, he has unfinished business at the IMS, and I would love to see him win a race one of these years.
Yeah, so let's add him in as somebody, because the one thing I like about Foyt is that he's a very good test driver. Obviously, he's incredibly intelligent, and
Yes.
he has an engineering mind, so he's a great test driver. And to have to really have a solid teammate in Kyle Kirkwood, who we talked earlier about next, who's going to be next, and that might change from week to week. But I mean, I've watched Kirkwood race since he was 16, and he's just so good.
Yes.
It wouldn't surprise me. I expect a very clean race from Kirkwood tomorrow. It wouldn't surprise me to see him, in the 8 to 10 range, maybe. But I think the information that JR got on when he did the test here, and Kirkwood's experience, and especially he's got, you have to watch him to really understand it, but he's got just a real feel for race cars, and I
He
think
does.
that he just has that feel where he can, I don't know if he's completely up to speed from a setup and engineering standpoint, but I think he knows how to go fast, and as long as he doesn't get caught up into a situation, where he doesn't want to be, I think he'll have a good run, and I really hope that Hildebrand has a good run.
I
Of
do
course, if
too.
you're
And I
looking,
always want to see AJ Foyt Racing do well, period. But
yes,
especially in Texas.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Houston really isn't that far from here,
It's
so
not.
and I think they consider this one of their home tracks, and I mean, AJ Foyt, kicked Ari Leinbach's ass because he didn't win, 20 years ago, or however long ago that was. So, AJ, the entire organization would like to get it done here.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I
So
think
you're,
Kirkwood is definitely going to be one to watch as far as the rookies go.
yeah,
Um,
I think
I'm Go ahead.
I think a lot of the rest of them, I think their goal should be just to stay clean and finish the race. Even if you're 5 laps down, even if you're 10 laps down, just keep it clean. Do your live pit stops, which pit stops are always critical. But on a 1.5 mile oval, you're losing a lot when you pit, and so
Hmm.
um, if you make a mistake, there's so much at this race. There's so much pressure on the pit crews,
And
as there
so
always
much
is.
room for error. So
Yeah,
much room for error, though.
yeah,
Like I mean, Rossi, the year that he won, had a fucked up pit stop at the 500,
yeah,
but he still was able to win because it's a big enough circuit that it's like you can mess up one thing and still be okay. But yeah, a mile and a half really does not give that same kind of grace.
yeah. Because in that instance, he didn't lose a lap. He just ended up way back at the end of
Sure.
the line. But yeah, you have some sort of screw up like that, all of a sudden you're like 3 laps down.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing when you talk about like the speed of it and stuff. Like when you come here, TV never does justice to racing. Just because you can't get that real feel of speed.
No,
No matter how much they try and use camera angles and everything like that, I mean, you can't really, put that well on
the
TV.
only
I,
the
and
only
I
one
was,
that comes close is the nose cone camera.
yeah, yeah,
That is about as close as you can get to how it feels in person.
yeah. But what surprised me when I was here 3 years ago was just, man, I mean, it looks faster than you would imagine it to be. It just looks so insane. Because realistically, race pace, they're what, 10 miles off of what they are at IMS? I mean, it's not to the naked eye and to people who aren't, who don't do this for a living or anything like that, it's not noticeable. 212, 214, 215 to 225. I mean, and so to put it in a smaller venue like this, it'd almost be like watching an NBA game in a grade school gym.
Right.
Just how fast it would be, and just if you look up, like if you're watching on the video boards and they're on the back stretch, and then all of a sudden you can look down on the front stretch and they're there. So yeah, I mean, it's just get these guys, get a lot of these rookies, because the next time they are on an oval is at Indianapolis. So I just want to see the drivers who are doing this for the first time, or in the case of Grosjean doing it for the second time, just clean races out of everybody. That's what I'm hoping for them. But you mentioned Rossi, and he's somebody that he's got to do something tomorrow, or he's got to do something Sunday. I mean,
He does. I feel like he has been plagued by misfortune
yes,
because
yes,
his record does not reflect what kind of a driver he is.
yeah, right. And that's yeah. Some of it's bad luck. Some of it is qualifying, especially on road courses and stuff, and even on ovals, it's important. I mean, you gotta get out of the back.
Yep.
You've got to at least, on a road course, you've got to at least get through the first round.
Yes.
If you don't make it into that second 12, you're going to have a really, really tough day.
Yes.
And you're kind of exposed to, some sort of weird incident going on back there, and like what we saw at Texas last year.
Yep.
There was just weirdness that went on in the back of the field, took out 5 or 6 cars before we even got started.
Yeah.
So, but that's the thing. Rossi's not even making it into that top 12, and so I don't know the reason for that,
I don't
but
either, but
yeah,
it
that's
just
that's
really
part
does
of what's
not reflect who he is as a driver.
exactly because when you see him when he's hooked up, like you go back a couple years and go back to when he won at Road America, or when he won at Long Beach and stuff like that. I mean, he was just, and even when things go well for him at Indy, I mean, he's one of the best talented in terms of talent. He's pure talent. He's one of the best drivers in the paddock. But the hard part is to take a phrase from Rasheed Wallace, ball don't lie. And in the last 17 races, he's had 6 finishes of 20th or worse.
Yeah.
And you get one mulligan. You look at his 20th place finish,
Right.
give him that mulligan, and everything. But he's having too many of them, and
Well,
that's
and he's had
that's
mechanical gremlins. He's had repeated issues with hits, and that is something that Molly and I have talked about on air and off. And it's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, it's Andretti Autosport.
yeah. Yeah, it's just crazy how you look at Colton Herta now is what he was in 16, 17, 18. You
Agreed.
know, but yeah, it's just weird to see on a team one driver is, if you want to, you almost use the word dominant, because Herta is kind of in that category, especially when he's leading a race. He's definitely dominant when he leads
Certainly.
races. And but just to see him and then the sort of drop off in results to everybody else, that's also
Yeah.
what's baffling to me too.
Yeah, it's quite the dichotomy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
very, very unexpected. You don't expect a race team to have that much variation within the
hmm
results.
hmm and especially one that supposedly shares data with everybody.
Right. That's one of the
on the
quote
team.
big three.
Yeah, yeah, and they all share the same information. They're all sitting in the same meetings and debriefs and all that other kind of stuff. So why isn't what's working for Herta, working for everybody else, unless Herta's just that much better than everybody? And I guess, if we may end up finding that out in IndyCar, maybe even beyond in the next couple of years with his news this week. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, is it Herta? Is it he's just that much better than anybody else, or is there something that goes on with him that isn't going on or getting applied to everybody else?
Well, yeah, I will say unofficially, I think there have been some conversations on that team why as to why that has been happening.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do think that Herta is insanely talented, but I don't think that explains all of it. I think that for whatever reason, there's some sloppiness happening.
Yeah, Herta's the most talented driver on the team, but I mean, Rossi is,
A
Herta's
very close second.
1A and Rossi is 1B. Their talents are very, very close,
Mm-hmm.
and but the results aren't close.
No.
Rossi, had one podium last year, and at Portland, I think it was, and he had several the year before, but I think I counted 5 or 6 podiums in 2020, and he still finished ninth in points because he had so many other bad finishes to cancel it out.
Right. And that's the thing is it's like all or nothing.
Right.
So
Right. So hopefully he practices well. I mean, everything seems to be going well in practice, and then some weird crap happens to him, and so is part of it race strategy? I don't know, because he's not with his usual strategist now, right? Am I
um,
confused? Rob Edwards is with somebody else, right?
you know what? I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah.
So they did mix that up for this year. So
Yeah, and those two had a great thing going, and I kind of think it's paralysis by analysis, going with that and saying, oh, we got to make a switch because he didn't do well. No, I think you just need to keep that group together and let them ride it out.
right? Yeah. I agree with you. I would love
But
to
yeah,
see him do well this weekend.
yeah, because Andretti is one of those teams that I can't figure out, that it's just always, they're always shuffling the deck, and I don't know if that's always going to be uh, a positive, for every member of that team,
I I mean, I just don't
so,
think there's any way that it can be.
yeah, yeah, I think you've just got to set, and you look at, and that's the thing, you look at Herta has that consistency.
Hmm.
His dad calls his races, and of course, nobody's ever going to take his dad off the pit box for him.
Right?
So keeping that constant has proven to be very, very good and very successful, especially because you know um, the connection between Brian and Colton, and I think that you know they're partners in this, in a sense, not because they're dad and son, but I think they just click together because they have the same kind of thought process and mindsets. And
No, they do.
I would just wonder if you took Brian off of Colton's pit box and put somebody else up there. I don't know if Colton would be as good as he is. And so
I
you
think it
can,
would definitely affect his race.
for sure.
And well, and I'll say, listening to his radio is the best gift that IndyCar has given us.
Yeah,
Because Colton Herta, I mean, he was a senior in high school the first time I interviewed him.
yeah.
And so to hear him have a mouth like mine, just really, it's the best. It's the best.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what race it was, but it was a great interaction between him and his dad. And his dad, he was qualifying, and his dad kept trying to give him pointers. And he finally goes, will you just shut up and let me fucking qualify?
Yeah.
And so he, his dad was like, Roger that. And it was like radio silence. And then he ended up P1. And
Yeah.
so as soon as he was P1, his dad goes, well, I guess next time I'll just shut up and let you fucking qualify.
Yeah, and that's what I think is just just knowing that it's like, okay, he might be, and when you can look at your driver and say, you know what, he might be right, and just let it go, is sometimes one of the best things you can do. And I think sometimes it'll be people get, and plus, when it's said, then it's over and done with between the two of them.
Exactly. Well, and a lot of that is because they're father-son. It's like, this is not the first, high emotion interaction that they've had.
Right.
And they're both race car drivers. It's just, I feel like that's a gel that you can't mess with and expect the same results.
Right. I wonder if Brian will go to F1 with him.
I would be excited for Colton, but I would be very sad to lose him from IndyCar because I just love that kid.
Yeah, absolutely. Although they need some more interesting people on Drive to Survive, and he would be one of them.
Oh, he'd be exceptionally interesting. Yeah. I mean, his radio alone, I could make an entire reality show just out of Colton Herta's radio. It is literally, he's always one of my top favorites on my radio.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just, I'll tell you who else was great on the radio that you might not expect because he's Canadian, and that was Robert Wickens. That is one of the things I miss the most about him not driving is his radio. I remember his first Indy 500, lap 1, between turns 2 and 3 on that back straightaway. They went like 4 wide, and Wickens backed out, and over the radio he was like, "Are they fucking serious right now? Fuck's sakes!"
Yes, they are. That's how it rolls.
Right? I was like, welcome to Indy, trial by fire.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, nothing better than good driver radio interactions. So
So segueing into that, I think Herta, you have to think that he's. I look at among the younger guys, Herta or Ward, Pelot, those guys are going to be up front. Dixon wins there a lot. He's going to be at the front. But also, you look at the rookies. I think Kirkwood would probably more than likely be the highest finisher if he finishes the race. I'm a little worried about some of those other guys, and just because and that's what's hard with. And I get the reasoning behind not having the Freedom 100 anymore. It's not to say I don't like it.
Oh, I don't like it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a staple of Carb Day. But it doesn't. The ladder system is awesome, but giving these guys oval experience is not. It's not the intention, I think, and it is. It's a hard thing to tiptoe because. You wreck a car and you're done, or and that's the thing when you look at a guy like Kirkwood, you look at some of these kids, they have to keep winning to keep racing, and Kirkwood was one of those guys, and I mean, I saw a couple of guys when I was working with John Comiskey in the USF 2000 series that were good, talented drivers, and Anthony Martin is one that I think about. He had to keep winning and he didn't. And now he's, back home and I don't even know how much racing he even does. And so, with Kirkwood, that was the case too, is he had to keep winning in order to keep getting those scholarships and working his way up. But, it also doesn't give these guys a lot of experience on ovals. And that's really, I think, the hardest transition for those guys between Indy Lights and IndyCar is just that experience on ovals. And thankfully it hasn't really reared its head in the past. But yeah, you just don't want a rookie making a dumb mistake and taking out 6 other cars, on
Agreed.
an oval race. And so hopefully everyone keeps that in mind. If you want to take somebody off the big three, and that I think could do well tomorrow, is Sato, because
Ooh.
that's what he does. And so long as he's not hitting anybody, his his no attack, no chance is very effective when he's not crashing into people. So with that,
60% of the time, it works every time.
yeah, exactly. I mean, but the thing is, when we look back on his career, 2-time Indy winner, and came pretty damn close to winning a third.
Yeah.
You got to really look at thinking, there was method to his madness.
Right.
But yeah, I think Graham Rahal always races well there.
He does. So
He's won there, so
he has won there. I think Jack Harvey is going to be a force to be reckoned with for this race, because he's on Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan now. Graham has won there before, and Jack really has been hitting his stride these last couple seasons.
Yeah.
And, I think that he is going to be kind of a surprise veteran that comes out and gives people more trouble than they expected.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other person I'm really interested in seeing is Elio. And obviously we discovered last year at Indy that he still has his fastball. But with that team and coming to Texas, which he hasn't raced here in a couple years or anything, that'll be really interesting to see if this magic that he's capturing very late in his career transfers outside of Indy. Which you think it would, but you never know until you say, he didn't really race that well, for a guy who's won how many road races. He wasn't all that great at St. Pete. So, he'll be interesting to watch, to see, like I said, if he's still got it, outside of Indy. And, because I really think that Elio, if the era stays the same, and I'm going off on a tangent, but if the era stays the same that we're in now, that so many people have an opportunity to win the Indy 500, I think he might be the last of the 4-time winners. And that's just that's crazy to think. But I just don't. You look at the only active driver with more than one is Sato. A couple of the guys have other interests that may want to take them somewhere for the prime of their careers, and so many more people are in the mix with a chance to win. I think he might be the last one. Just like in baseball, we're probably never going to see a 300-game winner again. It's just the way the sport is. And so I think with that, it'll be interesting to see now that he's full time. I mean, when you're so good at Indy and you can just tunnel vision yourself into that one day, that's a lot different than having to run a full season and worry about testing other places and doing things like that. So I'm curious to see what both Elio and Simon do. I mean, Simon comes in with a lot to prove. It's really weird because I remember talking to him at Toronto, and I said, what did I say to him? Like, you're kind of surprising people or something like that. Because really people were kind of surprised that he was the points leader at the time. And he looks at me and he goes, why would they think that? I'm the Indy 500 champion. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, which we've got to let more people know, because I wasn't the only one, I wasn't in an echo chamber with that thought.
Right.
And so I think that he, he's got a lot to prove too. So I just think if they can, get more of the race, give the drivers more of a race track to work with, I can only imagine what's going to happen on Sunday. And especially as it's going to, and how they deal with setups and stuff. Because, I mean, it's going to be 80 degrees. It might be a little bit windy. So it's a different circumstance than
Than
what we've
any other
been.
time they've raced there. Because
Yeah,
it's normally later in the summer and it's hot as hell.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, when I was there in 19, it was what, almost 100 degrees.
Oh,
And
easily, yeah.
and it helps, even if it's that hot, it helps once it gets dark because it, takes some temperature off the racing surface. But I mean, it's going to be, hot here tomorrow. It's going to be hot here Sunday, and so it'll just be interesting. You would think that would favor the more experienced drivers, because you're going to have to worry about a little bit more about setup and working with a track that a lot of these guys haven't seen before.
Yeah. I do I will miss having the race at night. I do want to say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely going to be a very different track because of the temperature difference.
Hmm.
Um so yeah, I think it'll be interesting. Um
Yeah.
who else do you think is going to be a force to be reckoned with?
Um, and this is what I put in my blog post. Some of the guys that were finished like midfield and back. Newgarden obviously is somebody who I think is going to. He needs to bounce back. I mean,
Hmm.
I talked earlier about mulligans, and just like at Barber, was that last year or 2 years ago? Last year, kind of overcame that wreck, but that was that first lap wreck, and there was his mulligan, and so you can have one in this series, you can't really have, or maybe one and a half,
Hmm.
and I'll call that half finishing like 15th, 16th instead of 28th.
Sure.
You can survive that, but if you are really interested in winning a championship, finishing 16th the first week, if you have a finish like that in the next race, all of a sudden, let's say McLaughlin wins again. I mean, he raced well here last year.
Hmm.
So
He
let's
did.
say he wins, and all of a sudden, a guy like Newgarden finishes down in the order, and all of a sudden, you might be close to 75, 100 points behind, 2 races in.
Easily.
That leaves you with a massive amount of work to do. So I'm sure he's going to be very intent on whatever you know uh, issues he had a few weeks ago. I think he's definitely he needs it just as much as some of those other guys do too.
I agree. I agree. In case you heard any of the background noise, the dog got the zoomies while you were talking.
Got the what?
The zoomies.
Oh, okay.
You know how that goes.
Yes, yes.
Oh yes. So
Well, we
okay,
love dogs.
we do, we do.
I never thought I would have said that 3 years ago, but then I got a dog and wonder what I was doing before I got a dog.
Right? I know. People are always like, "Are you more of a cat person or a dog person?" I'm like, I'm a both person.
Yeah, me too. Me
I'm
too.
like, I can't pick. I'm like, it's like 55%, 45%. Like, yeah, or
Yeah,
51-49 most days.
yeah, that's true.
But yeah, like I'm a both person. So, all right. Well, we'd be remiss if we did not discuss Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah, yeah. That'll be. He's coming to a track where he's won 7 times. Victory Circle is named after him. He's got that pedigree at Texas in one kind of car. I guess we'll have to wait and see, if he can transfer that to another car. I mean, he tested here last fall. They couldn't test a couple weeks ago, which he probably needed. I think it's like the other first-time drivers. I know he's thinking big. I read some articles today that he wants to qualify up front, which I think he can. Um, you know, uh, being out on the track by himself and being comfortable on this track and, knowing how to go fast here, that can transfer. So I wouldn't be surprised if he qualified really well. Just then again, I mean, an oval is such a different animal in terms of aero and how it works and how the car feels and, the air getting on your wings. You lose your air if you get too close to the car in front of you. I mean, there are a lot of variables that, I think he's going to have to overcome if he wants to get the top 10 finish that he's hoping for. Although I am glad to see that he's dipping his toe in because, I don't know how well he'll do at Indy, but it'll be interesting to see him, how he does on the ovals because, as he mentioned last year, the ovals are what gives him the best chances to have success. So I was really glad that he added them because, has his story been a little overblown for a guy who finishes 20th every week? Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard because, he's a legend and he's doing this just for himself, and I'm totally convinced of that. But, he's a competitor. You don't win 83 cup races and 7 titles without being, one of the 1% of the most competitive people in this world. So, sure. He wants to go out and he wants to do well. I hope that doesn't just lead him into perhaps overdriving the car or making some sort of mistake or something like that. I mean, I think his goal should be a clean race and not looking too far past that, oh man, I've got to do well here. I mean, same thing as some of the other drivers. You finish on the lead lap, you finish around 10th or even a little better, that's a good run. And you bring the car back in one piece, which is another good thing. And then you go to Indy and, he can drive 2,000 miles in practice to get himself accommodated to run the 500. He can't do that here. So I think it's hard to tell a 47-year-old man, yeah, you should really just be focusing on getting experience here. But yeah, that to me should be his main focus. Because I think he is getting into ovals because he wants to win the Indy 500. I mean, I don't doubt that. I feel like that's why he came to IndyCar in the first place because, you look at everything he's won, you put an Indy 500 on the top of that, and all of a sudden, I mean, a lot of people try and take away what he accomplished in Cup just because they say, well, the point system was different, this. Everybody was operating under the same point system, and he was the one that beat everybody. So, he's accomplished all this stuff. He's done well in the Rolex 24. He's done well in some different cars. And, I think he really wants to win the Indy 500 because that puts him then in a level with some of, not just one series greats of all time, but, one of just racing's greats.
Certainly.
And so, and I think that's what's driving him.
I would agree. And, and he's had the different advertising campaigns of he's racing against himself and, this and that. And honestly, I mean, he knows that he's not doing that well in IndyCar.
Right.
So, but, he's in his retirement and he's doing what he wants to do. It's kind of like how I feel about Ed Carpenter. He owns the team and he's going to continue to run the 500 probably till the day he dies. And he can do that. So
he's somebody I'll be curious to see this weekend.
Yeah, I will be curious to see if his skills from Cup do transfer at all on an oval. Just because he has struggled so much with the road courses and street courses. So, which I know IndyCar is an entirely different beast altogether. So, but yeah, it'll be interesting.
But I was also referring to, I was kind of referring to Ed as well.
Yeah. Ed as well. Yeah.
Yeah, because outside of Indies, he's not really been up to par on a lot of other ovals, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see. They've got 3 shots at it this weekend, so and they're an oval team, no matter what anybody tries to say, at them, and
Yes,
sometimes they'll get drivers who will win on road courses and stuff, but at the end of the day, ECR is an oval team,
they
and
are.
so that's what their focus is on. So I'm sure that Ed likes the fact that they got an extra car on the grid this weekend to take a shot at bringing a win home.
Oh, I'm sure he does.
And
I
it
am.
would be kind of cool if it were him.
It would be. It would be very cool. I mean, I always enjoy seeing it do well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely,
I
absolutely.
mean, you can't even root against the guy.
No, no, and just he's another one of those guys that um, is good for IndyCar. I mean, he's been, as a driver, he's been doing it for a long time, and now he's got, he has that team, and he's run that well for a long time. So they're kind of part of the history of IndyCar now, So to see them get a couple of, flagship wins would be cool. Although I think if Ed were to win the Indy 500, he would just he'd give everybody a wave and say, you know what, I'm
Right.
done.
You know what? I kind of tend to agree with you. I think that once he does it, he'll be like, all right, well, we've done that now.
Yeah, throw down some Sam Hanks action and just say, I'm retiring.
Right? Like, I'm good. It's
Yeah,
all good now.
yeah. But I mean, how else would you want to go out?
I mean,
I
that's the
mean,
best way to go out.
absolutely.
It is. All right. So, off the top of your head, who do you think is going to win this weekend?
Who do I think is going to win? I think it's going to be Alex Palou.
Okay. Who do you think is going to be the first out?
Um, it's a big pool of rookies. One of those guys will go out early.
Yeah.
Whether it be through an incident or whether it be through the quote unquote handling issues. Yeah,
Yes.
so
A rookie sacrifice is almost always made at this track. So, yeah.
yes, yes, for sure. But yeah, I think just with the exception of Kirkwood, just because I think that he's in amongst rookies. He's not going to. I don't think because of his team, he's not going to win Rookie of the Year. But I do think that he is the best of the rookie class. So take him out of that first out conversation and give it to somebody who's driving on an oval for the first time. Uh,
Fair enough.
so
Fair enough. Yeah, I would love to see her to win there.
mhm.
I mean, obviously I love to see Simon win anywhere, and I would love
Yeah,
to see that for Meyer Shank Racing. Um, and I am partial to that team because we share a name, uh,
absolutely.
right? Uh, I actually was wearing my Meyer Shank Racing sweatshirt to the vet last week, and my vet is an IndyCar fan, and he was like, "Oh, I love that team," and I was like, "Me too."
Yeah.
Uh, I was, and actually, my vet's going to come to Mid Ohio, so I was like, "Well, come find the flamingo." Um,
Uh-huh.
I was like, and come and hang out with Mike Shank and drink a beer with him.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, it's like just for fun. Um, I bought last year. I bought like 15 shares of Atlanta Braves stock because they're publicly traded,
Oh
and
yeah,
I can say that I made uh, 0.000 to the 12 power 1% an owner of the team. But that's how you should go up to Mike Shank and say, hey, what can I do to get my name on here? I mean, just say, hey, if I give you $100, am I part of Meyer Shank? Am I the Meyer and Meyer Shank? I
right.
would, I would work something out with him.
Well, I've made jokes many times. I always tell him that I'm going to come and crash the hospitality suite. Because my last name's Meyer. And funny enough, so the Meyer in Meyer Shank is Jim Meyer,
Yeah.
and my dad's name was actually James Meyer as well.
Uh,
He didn't go by Jim, but But yeah, it made me laugh, and so that's always the running joke. Because then I'm like, one of these races, you're gonna stroll in the hospitality suite, and you're just gonna see me there getting drunk, because
Yep.
I'm gonna talk
Yep.
my way in and say I'm family, and he always laughs, and he's like, just come in, you're welcome.
Well,
He's
yeah.
like, you
Speaking of
don't have to
family,
sneak in,
maybe do the ancestry.com thing and see if he's in your tree. Then you could definitely make it official.
right? I should, or just make a fake one. I mean, I'll just
Yeah, just
uh,
walk in and go, look, dude.
right. That would be cool. So yeah, I would love to see Meyer Shank Racing do well this weekend. I would love to see Jack Harvey do well. I think that Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan will do well, just as a team in general. Um, and yeah, I'm interested to see how Kirkwood does. And then as far as who I think might be the rookie sacrifice, I think it might be DiFrancesco.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's just
I
that
just kind of
whole.
get that vibe. I feel like it's going to be him.
Yeah, yeah. Just because of the whole thing and the circumstances that worked around it to put him in that car. I won't say bad things, but I just think that the guy driving the 14 should be the guy driving the 29. But that's
It,
just.
yeah, it is. It is an interesting turn of events there. I'll say that.
But then again, I think that a year or even 2 years with Foyt, and all of a sudden Kirkwood will be driving one of those cars,
Yeah.
one of those good numbered cars, like 12 or No, I think Will's going to keep racing for a long time, but
Oh, I think so too.
yeah. What else is he going to do? He's like us. He's got ADD. He can't sit around his house and watch TV or do whatever. I mean, at least I think
Right.
he's ADD. But the guy's got to keep himself busy, and I don't think he plays golf. I don't know what his hobbies are. I think his hobby is he's a race car driver.
Well,
So
he plays the drums.
yes, yes, that's true. That's true. And as much as everybody, loves his wife, I'm sure she's like, honey, I love you, but you need to get out of the house.
Right? Like if
Yeah,
he stayed home, she'd be like, "You are driving me insane. I love
exactly.
you, but you have to go."
Exactly. I mean, she's got to be, Liz has got to be one of the sweetest people I've met, in
Oh, she's a
IndyCar.
doll.
Yeah, she just that's what I say to people. It's kind of, unfortunate because it's like whenever they show her on TV, all they show her doing is chewing on a bottle and pacing around and stuff like that. And it's like, oh my gosh, she should have been here 30 minutes ago when she was, laughing and telling jokes and
Right?
she
Talking
doesn't.
to everybody and making everybody feel like they're family and
Right, right. Instead they just show her the last 20 laps and people
with
will
her,
be like,
yeah, the most stressful time. It's yeah.
yeah, I mean, because I look at it this way from a fan, and when I have a driver I'm rooting for, who has a chance to win, I get really nervous for them. I can't imagine what you do when you're family, when you're a spouse, or I can't imagine, when it gets down to crunch time. I can't imagine what your stomach's doing or anything. I mean, I know what mine's doing, and they've got to be 100 levels higher.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, I
So
know, Beth Bowles, Connor Daly's mom is, I mean, she is just a wreck the entire race.
yeah,
She's so, so nervous, and she and I have, watched parts of races together, and yeah, it's a different level when you're actually family. But
hmm
like you said earlier, it's so easy to like the guys and gals in our paddock.
right,
Um, it just, and so, that's why you never really want to see a big spectacular crash. It's, I mean, not that, you want to see that, but,
right,
it's like you start to feel like you're part of their family just because they're so accessible and so easy to get to and just so friendly and open.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I
yeah.
mean, it's pretty, and that's the cool. That's why when everybody says, oh, I want IndyCar to be big again, and I do too, but it's like I kind of like it the way it is, and just,
Right? It's like I want it
because
to get big, but like let's enjoy what we have right now because it won't be like this forever.
yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, it's crazy when I look at just, my little tiny corner in the IndyCar world, but it's like I can, and I know you can do this too, that I could send an email to somebody and say, hey, can I talk to so and so? And they're like, yeah, when's your schedule open or whatever. I mean, you can't do that in any other major series. I mean, if I tried to, I can get an interview with Alex Pillow, because
Hmm.
matter of fact, I emailed his guy, and he said, and it's understandable given, the stratosphere that Alex is in now. He's like, we don't have time this weekend, but give me, enough advance notice and we'll be able to do it. I mean, can you imagine if I ever sent like when they come to Coda, hey, I want to talk to Lewis Hamilton. I mean, they probably wouldn't send me a thing back. They would an email back. They would send me an audio of them laughing hysterically. You
Right.
know, but
Yeah.
so it's like I kind of like I kind of like the accessibility to go up and somebody knows you, somebody recognizes you, and it's really cool that way. So I wouldn't mind if it stayed that way, um, you know, for the near future at least. Like I said, I want more TV viewers, I want more sponsors, I want more money, but I still want to have that small town feel that the Paddock has.
I agree. I agree. I love that small town feel that we have. It's just one of the coolest places, coolest sports. Going to
Yeah,
races, it's one of the coolest things you can do just because of that connection, that level of accessibility.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's why I mean, I'm here to cover the race and all this other kind of stuff. I mean, I'm not getting paid, I mean, but I still love to follow this series around and interview drivers and write stories and do all that kind of stuff because I can. We can do that in
Exactly.
IndyCar. That wouldn't be possible anyplace else.
No, it definitely wouldn't be. It definitely wouldn't be.
So I'm kind of thankful for that.
I am too. Well, so you've been to Texas before, but I will reiterate to anybody who's going there for their first time, the restaurant in the infield, they do serve alcohol and great food. So highly recommend.
Tacos. I wish it were raining tacos. And if you want it to rain tacos, you just go to Torchy's and it'll start raining
Exactly.
tacos.
It will. Torchy's is where it's at, man. They've got
Yep.
margaritas, they've got beer, they've got queso, they've got tacos. It's just, it's everything you want Texas to be.
Yeah.
And you really can't go wrong. That giant ass TV they have, um,
Yes.
oh, it's the best.
Oh, the video screen? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I
That
love that at
that
Texas,
that's
and you
the
can see
best.
the whole track from every seat.
Yeah. And that's the benefit of having, this facility actually in Texas because when you're in Texas, you have to go big. So, of course, they'd have the world's largest video board. Of course they would.
Of course they would, and I love it. Oh my gosh.
Of
Yeah. What do
course,
they call it? What do they call it? Big Hoss TV or something like that?
yeah, yeah. Although
Yeah.
I think the one at AT&T Stadium where the Cowboys play might be giving them a run for their money. I would imagine seeing some sort of battle over the years between the two facilities as far as who can have the
Who's got
big.
the
Some
biggest?
someday there's just going to be a big video screen the length of the backstretch. That's the point it's going to reach.
Yeah. It feels like that. It certainly does.
Yeah,
Oh. All right. Well, Mike, I think I have taken up enough of your time. It's been lovely chatting with you.
absolutely. Thank you again, and I'll come on anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll have to chat with you after the race and see how it was live versus
Yeah,
my impressions at home. So yeah, I think we should
yeah.
definitely do that next week. And go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you online.
As I mentioned, if you want to see my blog, it's 15 Days in May.blogspot.com. On Twitter, it's at 15 Days in May. You can find me at both places.
All right, make sure to check them out. And as always, you can find everything related to Fast Cars, Fast Girls on any of our social media, which you can link to directly from our website, which is www.fastcarsfastgirls.com. So make
And
sure to check out 15daysinmay.blogspot.com. And yeah,
yeah, and if you connect with me on Twitter, I'll explain what my Twitter name means.
there you go.
I won't give it away now. You got to follow me and DM me, and then I'll explain
I like that. I like that.
it.
Make them interact. I'm here for it.
Absolutely.
I'm here
Yeah.
for it. Yeah, you got to give a little to get a little. I like
Yeah.
it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Mike, thank you again so much. And everyone, thanks for listening and enjoy the weekend.
Yeah. Enjoy the race.
Thanks.